If you think that staying healthy on a plant-based diet is too expensive, tell you what, you're not alone. And I've heard many people say that they want to eat more plant-based but worry about the cost. And that's one of the big myths that I want to break down, because it's setting somebody up who's wanting to be healthy for a failure, so that's not really true. I want to say that's not true. This video is packed with practical advice, educational tips, and personal insights to help you get started. The key here is to focus on whole foods because they are cheap. What's not cheap is a plant-based food that's processed. Now, how do we make sure we are eating on a whole food plant-based lifestyle affordably? Today, I'm about to share some of my incredible tips and tricks on how to help you eat delicious and nutritious plant-based foods without breaking your bank. Hello, lifestyle changers! My name is Dr. Delita and welcome back to my channel. Hey, if you think that staying healthy on a plant-based diet is too expensive, tell you what, you're not alone. But you're also in for a surprise. Why? Because if you stick around, today I'm about to share some of my incredible tips and tricks on how to help you eat delicious and nutritious plant-based foods without breaking your bank. So when I first transitioned to a whole food plant-based diet, I worried about the cost too. I mean, who wouldn't? Everybody says it's expensive. But I quickly learned the tips, the tricks actually, and I could eat healthy and affordably. So this is what I'm about to share to you today. Plus, I can say I feel better on a plant-based diet, so it's really worth diving into and figuring out how to navigate around this cost issue, which now I can say is not true. It's not true that staying healthy on a plant-based diet is expensive. It's not, and you'll learn in a while. I am a plant-based doctor, yes, and I've heard many people say that they want to eat more plant-based but worry about the cost. And that's one of the big misconception that I want to break down because it's setting somebody up who's wanting to be healthy for a failure, so that's not really true. I want to say that's not true. And today I'll explain how you can enjoy nutritious and plant-based on a plant-based diet without spending a fortune, without making it a big expense in your monthly budget. This video is packed with practical advice, educational tips, and personal insights to help you get started. All right, let's get started. But first, I want you to understand what a whole food plant-based diet is. Now, this is not the same as a vegetarian or vegan diet. To be clear, eating a whole food plant-based diet, this kind of diet that I'm talking about, is a habit. It's a lifestyle. It's not just a type of diet. Unlike popular diets, the whole food plant-based, or WFPB for short, is more of a lifestyle. It's more of a personal choice that encourages your creativity. It encourages your time for experimentation with food and the systems that suit you best. Understanding what whole food plant-based means will make you stick on this lifestyle in a more sustainable way. And it can make you executed in a very simple way. So let's break this down into two parts, okay? When I say whole food plant-based, there's two words, whole food, plant-based. Now, don't forget the whole food part. That is very important. That's what sets you apart from vegetarian and vegan diet. So the whole food means unprocessed or minimally processed foods like a single ingredient meal single ingredient items such as corn, for example, right? Corn. Opting for unprocessed foods and avoiding versions of these items with added oil or added sugar, added salt. That's what a whole food plant-based diet means. Like eating the food as it naturally occurs. I mean, if you say corn, then you're seeing corn, not something like corn-like food. When you say potato, then you're seeing a potato, right? It's in its whole food appearance, right? It's in its natural appearance. So one example I can tell you is corn. So corn, opting for when you have a corn in a cup, you decide to eat a corn, just that corn, nothing on it, no oil on it. You're not basting it with the butter, no salt, just the corn itself, cooked corn. Whether it's grilled or you boiled it or steam it, just the corn, then that's a whole food plant-based category. But if you have, for example, corn chips on your hand, that's not whole food. That's not whole food because then it is a corn with added oil, with sugar, or maybe also salt or preservatives, food enhancers, food coloring, right? All those chemicals that shouldn't be there. That example, corn on a cob is a whole food plant-based, but the corn chips is not a whole food plant-based diet. It can be vegan, right? If they didn't add any meat or any animal products in it, such as milk or dairy. But another example is potato, right? So when you say, I'm going to bake my potato or boil it, then, and eat it, that's a whole food plant-based category because it's a natural form. You just cooked it. But when, on the other hand, you say, I'm eating potato, French fries, that is a slightly processed food now added with salt and oil. And if you want to make it more processed, you'll have the potato chips. And this is not only loaded with oil, sugar, salt, but chemicals that serves as food enhancers or preservatives or binders or coloring, right? These chemicals are not natural. Now, that's a highly processed food. So eating baked potatoes is a whole food plant-based eating lifestyle, but not potato chips. Okay? Eating corn on a cob is a whole food plant-based lifestyle, but not the corn chips. Okay? In short, in a whole food plant-based diet, we want to eat the vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes in their natural form. Now, these are not only nutritious, but also incredibly affordable. The key here is to focus on whole foods because they are cheap. You just boiled it, right? You just cooked it or you just grilled it. You didn't add anything on it. So obviously they are cheap. What's not cheap is a plant-based food that's processed. Plant-based alternative foods that are processed are the ones that's costly. Now, how do we make sure we are eating on a whole food plant-based lifestyle affordably? Now, I have practical tips to share with you today that can help you afford a plant-based diet on a budget. And these are the tips that I share because I personally do it too. And this, if you do these tips, you can certainly say to yourself that you are busting the biggest misconception about plant-based diet, that they are costly. They are not. Okay? So first tip I want to share with you want to afford a plant-based diet on a budget is meal planning and budgeting. So meal planning is essential to avoid unnecessary expenses or purchases. And this also helps reduce food waste. Start by planning your meals for the week. Plan. Write down each meal and make a shopping list of the ingredients you need. Here are my tips for effective meal planning. Write this down. Number 1, I choose recipes and those recipes that have similar ingredients to save money and to reduce waste. So I tend to look at recipes like, for example, I like potatoes, for example, right? Then I look for recipes that call for potatoes, and then I'd be inclined to choose those recipes because then I only have to buy few ingredients. So choose recipes that use similar ingredients. Tip number 2 for effective meal planning: incorporate a mix of raw foods to keep things interesting and nutritionally balanced. So basically, I try to, let's say if I have leftover from previous meal in my refrigerator, I would utilize that. So that's a cooked food, right? And then I think of a raw food that I can mix that on with my leftover food. So be creative. Think that you can always mix raw and cooked food. In that way, it creates a new recipe, in a sense, and makes your eating lifestyle more interesting and nutritionally balanced. And another thing I do with effective meal planning is buying in bulk. So that's one of the best way that really saves me a lot of money on a plant-based diet. So look for bulk. If you can buy the ingredient by bulk, do that. It may cost a little bit expensive upfront, but if you actually do your math, it comes out more cheaper than buying in retail. So bulk of onions, like bag of onions, for example, or a bag of bell peppers, for example, right? So go for bulk, buy in bulk, especially for grains, beans, nuts, seeds, lentils. All right? Now, another thing I do, I go for seasonal produce. What are these vegetables and fruits that are in season? Because the supply is over the roof. There's so much supply for this particular fruit, for example, then the price is much lower. So if the price of the berries are high, then I would probably go for other fruits that are in season so that it can cut cost for my grocery expense. So seasonal food, choose those because they are cheaper and fresher too. See, what you can do is you can visit your local farm or local farmers market and ask for fruits and vegetables that are in season, because the chances are they are really inexpensive. And another thing with when you go for local farm markets is that because it's local, then the travel, your fruit or vegetable has a shorter travel distance, and you can be sure that it's often more nutritious and flavorful because then they don't have to preserve it because it's just in the neighborhood, right? You're getting it. Some actually are harvesting the fruits and vegetables from the supplier's backyard. So a little bit of research do can go an extra mile for you in your budget. Okay. So those are my tips for meal planning and budgeting. You're going to choose recipes that have the same ingredients or similar ingredients. You're going to choose for seasonal produce because they are more cheaper. And then you're going to buy in bulk, right? And you're going to think of mixing raw foods and cooked foods as one way to creatively construct a new and interesting recipe. All right. Now, second practical tip on affording a plant-based diet, if you're on a budget, is this: cooking at home. That's right. Cooking at home is healthier and more economical. You can control the ingredients that you put into your food, right? And you can ensure a balanced diet without the added preservatives and extra calories when you're the one cooking it. So I can tell you that when I started cooking our own food, I think this is one that balances off the cost. And I realized this is a major, like a deal breaker, because I know that when we are in my household, we are a family of four. When we eat out at a vegan restaurant, we could be paying about $60 for one meal for the four of us. I like a decent meal, like really full. $60 for one meal. But when I cook at home for the same, amount of, same feeling of fullness, should I say that way? I am only spending about $20 for the four of us. So 20 versus 60. 20 when we cook at home, and then have $60 when we eat out. So cooking at home has a lot of benefits. One of those, as I mentioned, is cutting your budget, right? Very, very effective way in affording a plant-based diet is cooking at home. Second is, you cannot underestimate the exercise. You have to think of that when you are in the kitchen, you're doing these things, you are exercising too. Standing is a form of exercise, although not aerobic, but that is still much better than sitting or being sedentary, right? And cooking at home is also a nice way to connect or to bond with your kids or with your family, and you can make it a fun and experience for them. Now, my third tip or strategy for affording a plant-based diet on a budget is batch cooking and meal prep. Batch cooking is a game changer for me too. Why? Because when I prepare large quantities of meals like soups or casseroles or stews or whatever it is, even for my brownies, I cook them in big batch and then I freeze them in portions. This saves so much time and ensures I always have a healthy meal ready when I am crunched out of time. So, for example, last night I cooked. We had in the Philippines is a common food called ampalaya. In English, it's bitter melon, where we originally it's cooked with scrambled egg, right, with tomatoes and onions and some, meat in it. But I've learned to plantify it, Everything the same except for meat is changed to mushroom and egg is changed to tofu, scrambled tofu, and the salt, regular salt, is changed to black salt because black salt gives you that eggy um, smell or taste to my tofu. So anyway, I made that for dinner last night and I batch cook it. I did about maybe 10 or 12 pieces of bitter melon. And so we had a very satisfying meal last night. And I was also able to save two big meals out of that. So I have two extra um, meals for the family for in my freezer. So it's stored in the freezer now. So I just cook it once, but I have a few more extra if I get lazy to cook or I have no time to cook. So batch cooking, that is a game changer. Okay? Now, tip number 4 for affording a plant-based diet on a budget. Choose simple and affordable recipes. Try making a big pot of chili with beans or anything, any food that you like or your family like, and of course plantify it. But what is going to make your transition, if you're still transitioning to a plant-based diet, is really just deciding that you don't have to search out for the most delicious, good looking recipe out there, and then you're challenged on how to find these ingredients and execute them. And if you do, you will end up probably be on a higher end of your budget because these are, not so common ingredients. Start with simple. Start with simple and affordable recipes. These can still be delicious and nutritious and easy on the wallet. And another great option is, for example, making a vegetable stir fry, or the one with when you add tofu in it, or you may add brown rice on it. So me personally, I have learned to plantify some of the Filipino foods that we are so used to. In that way, we don't have, our taste buds doesn't have to struggle so much with the adjustment period. Just switching some meat foods with plant foods, and then keeping it simple because you're already familiar with the recipe, right? Now, the fifth tip I want to share with you that I personally do in affording a plant-based diet on a budget is focus on whole, unprocessed foods. So vegetables, fruits, grains, and legumes, these are more affordable and packed with nutrients. Just make simple swaps. And I think I've mentioned that already. Swaps like using mushrooms or lentils instead of meat in recipes that you're already so familiar. Whatever that is, plantify it. You have pasta, go ahead and you can still start with pasta. Just choose a pasta with high fiber. And then make your pasta sauce the way you do it, but just limit the salt and change the meat into mushrooms, for example. These are practical ways that you can start yourself on your journey with a plant-based diet. Now remember, every small change makes a difference. Start with one plant-based meal a day and then maybe gradually increase it. Start with a breakfast. Maybe you just need to change the breakfast. And then if you start being comfortable with that, then change or shift your lunch and then your dinner. You'll be amazed at how delicious and affordable plant-based is. I urge you to start it as soon as possible, because the sooner you do, the less resistance you feel, and the more chances of you developing, creating that momentum to keep going. I hope that these tips help you see that a plant-based diet can be both affordable and nutritious. Do you have a budget-friendly recipe already in mind? All you have to do if you want to start on plant-based is just swap the whatever meat or plant or animal-based foods in that recipe with something that's plant-based. Start there, work your way, and be creative, and do not stop exploring. If you do have a recipe already, please don't hesitate to share them. Share them in the comments below. Stay connected, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a video. Or we also encourage you to sign up in our website so that you will get our weekly newsletter and some updates on what we are up to. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye!